Good afternoon, and welcome to Sadlier's webinar on Common Core and more. My name is Janine Ferrara, and I'm the Director of Product Management for all Sadlier's mathematics and digital products. Also with us on the line is Rosara Estrella, our Product Specialist, who will be assisting me with any questions you might have during the presentation. So if you have any questions during the presentation, I would appreciate it if you would put your questions in the chat box in your control panel of your GoToMeeting, of the GoToMeeting bar. And then after the presentation, Rosara and I will answer those questions. And one other thing before we get started is that your microphones are on mute, meaning I can hear you, you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. So again, should you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat bar. Rosara will be monitoring that throughout the presentation, and then we will definitely answer them at the end. So let's begin. Common Core Progress is a supplemental K-8 program that covers 100% of the Common Core state standards. It's available for mathematics and English language arts, and there is instruction and practice for every Common Core state standards. And you'll see that once I go through this, our English language arts and our math program are structured very similar. That units are organized by the domains if they're math and the standards for English language arts. And this program is going to help prepare our students for the new assessments of Common Core. The new program for Common Core for math has a flexible use. Its use, I think of it as there's several ways that you can use this program in your classroom. One is if you are trying to fill the gaps of your core basal math program. So this program is not intended to take the place of your core basal math program, but intended to be more of a companion piece or a supplemental piece to complement any gaps that you might find in instruction to address the Common Core state standards. Or should you need to support small groups or individual students on a specific Common Core state standard, then you would use this program. And then the third way that you could use this program is to prepare for your new state assessment. So the three ways are to fill the gaps in your core program, to meet individual needs on a specific Common Core state standard, and three, to prepare for the new state assessments. Common Core Progress has different components to it. It has a student work text, which is a consumable workbook that includes the instruction and the practice for every Common Core state standard. It has a full annotated, I shouldn't say annotated, a teacher's edition with wrap copy, which provides in-depth lesson plans for every Common Core state standard, strategies and suggestions on how to teach the standards. It has online components in the areas of additional practice, a home component, and additional assessments. We have an iProgress monitor, which is our web-based test generator, where you'll have our benchmark assessments as well as the assessment feature where you can customize your own assessments. Our assessment booklet will include 4 benchmark assessments so that you can gauge students' progress over the course of the year. But before I begin, I really want to get into Common Core and show you, just talk a little bit about Common Core, what that's about, and how you'll find that our Progress program meets the needs of Common Core. So there are actually 3 entities of Common Core: the content standards, the standards for mathematical practice, and the shifts in math. And the content standards are what every teacher knows. That's what students should be able to do by the end of their grade level. And so June 2nd, 2010, when the Common Core state standards were released, I think most teachers went to that document to see what should I be teaching this year and what should I not. So I think most teachers are familiar with the content standards. What they're not is the standards for mathematical practice. And Common Core is saying that these standards for mathematical practice should drive the instruction, should drive the teaching of the content standards. And these are the thinking standards, the process standards, and how students should be thinking when learning mathematics. And the shifts in math are what should be happening during the instruction. There needs to be shifts in the instruction in order to successfully implement Common Core. And all three of these entities are feeding the assessment. So when students are taking the new assessments, they will be assessed on the content standards, the standards for mathematical practice, and the shifts will have implications on the items, but they will not be assessed on the shifts. So here are the 8 standards for mathematical practice. There are 8 of them. They're common K through 8, and Common Core wants these standards to permeate all math instruction. So we should be addressing these when teaching math. And they shouldn't be seen as a checklist where today I'm going to make sense of problems and tomorrow I'm going to attend to precision. But they should permeate all math instruction. Again, as I mentioned earlier, these standards should drive how the content standards are implemented. And so when I go through how Common Core progress, the features and benefits of our new program, I'm going to be mentioning how you're addressing these standards for mathematical practice. And these are pretty heady, I would say. Some of the language is not that easy to understand. So there is a document, I don't know, a diagram I should say, I'm not quite sure you're familiar with this, but this diagram was created by a professor, William McCullum, out of the University of Arizona, because he did say that these 8 standards are hard for people to remember and are a little complex. So he said, let's think of it as 4 categories. Let's think of standards 1 and 6, and that's the gray bar right here that you could see. Let's think of those 2 as problem solving, and they should permeate all instruction every day. So we want to be problem solving in our classroom every day, and I'm going to show you how we do that with Common Core progress. And then if you group the second 2, reason abstractly and quantitatively, and 3, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others, let's think of that as reasoning and explaining. Are we reasoning and explaining in our class every day? Yes, we want to be doing that. And number 4 and 5, model with mathematics and use appropriate tools strategically. Are we modeling and using tools in our classroom every day? And we want to be. And we have to expand our definition of modeling and think of modeling beyond the concrete definition of, modeling math with concrete manipulatives. Think of modeling as modeling math with words, modeling math with symbols, with a number line, with diagrams, with charts. Think of modeling math in the real world. So we have to just expand our definition on how we think modeling is, because Common Core has changed that. And then look at the last 2, 7 and 8. And I always think these are pretty heady. These, I think, are pretty complex. Look for and make use of structure, and look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. What exactly does that mean? So Professor McCullum says, let's think about that as seeing structure and generalizing. And we see there is structure in math. We as adults see the structure in math, but we want our students to be able to see that structure. There's structure in our place value system. There's structure in our algorithms. So when we think of the 8 standards for mathematical practice, try and think of them as in 4 groupings. 1, again, problem solving. We want to be problem solving every day. The second being reasoning and explaining. The third, modeling and using tools. And the 4th, seeing structure and generalizing. So those were the 8 standards for mathematical practice. The next, I'm just going to talk briefly about the 3 shifts, because I want to, again, show you and point out how they're addressed in our program. So the 3 shifts in mathematics are focus, coherence, and rigor. And I'm sure you've been hearing a lot more about these 3 shifts. In New York, there's 6. They started off with 6 shifts, and then they eventually moved them over to 3, to 3 shifts. And those 6 shifts in New York, if I have any New York educators on this webinar, just know that when you are talking about the 6 shifts, you're talking about the 3, because the 4 shifts of deep understanding, dual intensity, application, and fluency are all in under rigor, come under rigor. So focus is where the United States curriculum, remember, was criticized as being a mile wide and an inch deep. And so what Common Core wants us to do is focus on fewer topics. So we want to go in more depth on fewer topics so students really understand math and make sense of math. Coherence is where we want our students to make connections within math. So make connections within the grade level between topics in math and across the grade levels. So now we see, again, we see this as adults. We know the connections. We know the connections between number and the operations, and but Common Core wants our students to be able to see this now. So no longer is it acceptable to know that 3 times 5 is 15. They want us to know the why, so to connect the number with the operations. And then rigor. Rigor is that balance of conceptual understanding and procedural fluency, procedural knowledge and fluency and application. Can students actually go out and apply this to the real world? Are they able to understand these skills and concepts and apply it? So now that we've talked about the standards for mathematical practice and the shifts, I just really want to hone in on 3 important topics that I think are the essence of Common Core for mathematics. Common Core wants us to have a collaborative classroom. They want students to be able to start talking about mathematics, sharing their ideas, and sharing their strategies, because there's research out there that shows that students learn best from one another. So Common Core wants the math classroom to be a collaborative classroom. So there needs to be a lot of collaboration in the classroom and moving away from that talk and chalk. Visualization. Common Core wants students to visualize math, show math multiple ways, show multiple representations of math. So can students show that 3 times 5 is equal to 15? Can they show it on a number line? Can they visualize that? Can they visualize that that's 3 groups of 5? Can they draw a diagram about that? Can they explain it? So once they can visualize it, then they can move on to explanation and justification. Then they can explain why 3 times 5 is 15. They could justify why 3 times 5 is 15. And there's a big difference between explain and justify. And not every all direction lines that say explain really require that students to justify. For me, I would ask students to explain and justify their answer all the time. Explanations are where we want students to explain the procedure. What did they do to get to arrive at their solution? But the justification is why it works mathematically. So 3 times 5 is 15 because multiplication is the number of groups times the number in each group. If I have 3 groups of 5, the answer is 15. That's that justification and connecting, making that connection to between number and operations. So think about, while I'm presenting this program, collaboration, visualization, explanations, and justification. And so you could see how that is addressed in our program. So as I mentioned earlier, the table of contents. The table of contents is organized around the domains, and it addresses 100% of the Common Core state standards. I did mention about one of the use on how you could use this program is with in conjunction with a basal or core program. So up at the top left-hand corner is a table of contents from our Progress in Mathematics, Sadlier's core basal program, Progress in Mathematics, grade 3. So if I was to use Progress, the supplemental program, I would come over into the grade 3 table of contents and say I was working in a chapter on fractions, and I was working with fractions on a number line, and my students need an additional support on fractions on a number line. I can come over into the Common Core Progress supplemental program and find where that standard is addressed, and again find lesson 18 where this standard is addressed, and then access all that instruction and practice on that one particular standard. So here's just an example on how you could use it. It's flexible use, how you could use it in conjunction with a core basal program. But as I mentioned, every unit is focused on one of the domains. So there's 4 to 5 domains at each grade level. And each unit begins with a progress check, home connect. And I'm going to show you this in a little bit, but the progress check is a self-assessment for students to allow them to what type of skills students are coming into the class with for that unit, that particular unit. And every unit begins with an essential question. The lessons are logically sequenced, and we do pay specific attention or give special attention to certain specific Common Core state standards. So if you're a state that's following, you're a park state, and you're following the model content frameworks, where they give special emphasis to the major work of the grade level, the supporting and the additional. The major work of the grade level, we've given additional or special emphasis on those particular standards. So you'll see here in the circled text that there will be multiple lessons on those specific standards that of the major work of the grade level. At the end of every unit, there's a Common Core review, which reviews the Common Core state standards that were addressed in the unit. And we also have an end-of-unit performance task, which is available online for you to download. And that just exposes students to the type of assessments that will be on the new Common Core assessments. So the performance tasks review a cluster of the standards. At the end of every book, at the back of every book, is a foundational skills handbook. To me, this is extremely important as a part of a supplemental program because once you get into the Common Core state standards, you'll see that there are actual gaps in the standards. And because that Common Core has moved standards from one grade level to the next, there are certain prerequisite skills that our students need in order to be successful with the grade level content. So we have put in the back of Progress Mathematics the Foundational Skills Handbook so that at your fingertips you don't have to go to another resource. You can access the prerequisite skills. There are many lessons for these prerequisite skills to help you and your students fill the gaps of the Common Core state standards. So here's the progress check that I mentioned in the table of contents. The progress check outlines how the Common Core state standards unfold across the grade levels. Think of this as a self-diagnostic assessment for students, a nice reflection piece. And what this does is this was built on the learning progression. So if you're the learning progressions document. So if you're familiar with the learning progressions document, this progress check came directly from that. And again, this is the coherence that Common Core wants our students to understand. The students come in at or this is a grade 3 lesson or grade 3 unit, and so in grade 3 they will be interpreting products of whole numbers. Do students really know that beforehand, before the unit? Maybe not. It's a nice self-reflection piece, and then they come back and visit it afterwards. But they also can assess, do I know the skills that I need from grade 2 in order to be successful with the skills I need to learn in grade 3. And then students need to know, where are they going with this? Where are they going with this skill in the following grade level? Again, connecting skills across the grade level, it shows a coherent program. On the back of the progress check is a home connect. And what I love about the progress check being on the back, because it's a consumable product, on the back of the home connect, that progress check goes home with the students as well. So the progress check goes home as well as the home connect, which encourages the families to take an active role in the students' learning process. So the parents are well aware of what the students need to learn, and we've identified the Common Core state standards that will be addressed in the chapter and also provide additional activities. Every unit begins with a unit opener, which puts the content of the unit in a real-world setting and makes it relevant for students. And it also begins with an essential question, which I like to think of this essential question as the big idea. What is the big idea for the unit? It sets the focus for the unit, and again, you'll see here that we're addressing MP 2 and 3, mathematical practice 2 and 3, where we want students to be explaining and reasoning, letting them share their ideas and start talking about math. And that's really what we want students to do, is communicate mathematically. The lesson design for in progress mathematics takes on the gradual release of responsibility model. So that's the I do, we do, you do it alone. So model, where the guided instruction is the I do part of the model. The guided practice is we do it together. And the independent practice is you do it independently on your own. But all the time we have peer collaboration woven throughout. So you'll see the specific features throughout the program where we are encouraging students to work together. Problem solving. Problem solving is a key component of Common Core progress. And Common Core does not want problem solving isolated. So not that it's taught as a separate strand, but rather integrated into the learning process every day. So we want our students to be reading and planning and solving and checking problems every day. And this should become a habit of mind for students. So as adults, we do this every day. When we're posed with a problem, we do read the problem carefully. We do plan how to solve it and solve the problem and then check to make sure the answer makes sense in the context of the problem. But as students, they do not do that. So we want our students to do that every day and get into the habit of mind of using the 4 problem-solving steps to address every problem that they're confronted with. And again, you're addressed by problem solving every day. You are addressing the mathematical practice standards 1, 4, 5, and 6. We're making sense of problems. We're persevering solving them. We're modeling mathematics every day. We are using the appropriate tools. And a problem solving strategy is a tool for solving problems. And then we are attending to precision. We are answering the problem correctly. So let's get into looking at a lesson in grade 3 and looking at the lesson structure. So as the unit began with an essential question, then remember I said that's the big idea. Every lesson begins with an essential question, which sets the focus of the lesson. And again, we're getting students to communicate and reason about mathematics in every lesson. So the unit essential question focuses on the big idea, and then the lesson essential question focuses on the skill of the lesson. And all the lesson essential questions will be used to build knowledge to answer the big idea essential question at the beginning of the unit. Words to know, they're highlighted in context on the page, and this identifies the academic vocabulary of the lesson. Again, we're addressing MP6. Because students need to use the correct academic vocabulary in order to communicate mathematically. And we want students to use that academic vocabulary in their explanations. And the way the lessons are structured is that what we did for each Common Core state standard, we broke that standard down into bite-sized, manageable, teachable chunks, if you would. And these teachable chunks are presented in understand presentations, a series of understand instructional models. So this lesson happens to be on multiplication and division of equal groups. So here we're talking about the first understand presentation talks about equal groups as multiplication. The second and third understand presentations of the lesson focus on using division to find equal groups, to find the number of equal groups, and then to find the number in each group. Again, we break the Common Core state standard into manageable, teachable understand presentations. Every understand presentation begins with a real-world problem because, again, we want students to be problem-solving every day. And most of them are introduced with some form of a tool. And I'm saying a tool here is the number line, whether it's a concrete object, I should say, a number line, or a manipulative, or a drawing. We're introducing the word problem and solving it using a tool strategically. And then throughout the program, you'll see these remember boxes. These remember boxes tap students' prior knowledge. That's the coherence that Common Core wants our students to have. Remember the definition of division. Remember that there are 2 meanings of division when you're trying to find the answer to a division problem. So we want our students to be able to make those connections across the grade level, within the grade level between math topics. And then the lesson concludes with a connect presentation, which brings the Common Core state standards together and builds knowledge for the essential question. That's really, really important. So the instructional guided practice, the I do part of the gradual release of responsibility model, is a series of understand instructional presentations followed with a connect. And then throughout the program, you will see this little pencil icon. Again, little prompts here to have students explain and reason. Again, helps you understand students' thinking process. Because as a teacher today, you're challenged to get into the minds of 27 or 30 children. And by having them explain their reasoning and write about math will help you understand whether they really do understand the meaning of the operations and understand the skill that's being taught. And then we follow up our guided instruction with guided practice. Again, we scaffold our exercise sets, and this is the We Do It Together part of the gradual release of responsibility model, and it always ends with a think, pair, share. Again, we're addressing mathematical practices 2 and 3, and again, we're getting students to share their ideas and share their strategies. So again, going back to that diagram, the collaboration, we need math to be a collaborative effort here so that students learn from one another. We end the lesson with independent practice. This is where the rigor comes in. This is where we want students to do it on their own, that I do part of the gradual release of responsibility model. And it's followed with an abundance of exercises. They are scaffolded in that they range from easy to hard, and they are cognitively demanding type exercises where we have students show their work. Again, they're modeling mathematics, and they're using tools strategically to show their work. Here they're modeling math. They actually have to show a drawing. They are using the number line to model math. And again, addressing the standards for mathematical practice. Showing your work is extremely important. That's how you're going to understand whether students really understand the skill or math concepts. So again, you'll see there's many opportunities throughout the program for students to do that. As I mentioned earlier, every unit ends with a performance assessment and a Common Core review. The difference between the two is that the Common Core review reviews every Common Core state standard that was addressed in the unit. The performance assessment reviews a cluster of the Common Core state standards. And these are the type of assessments that are going to be most likely on the new Common Core state assessments. So we want to be able to expose our students to these type of assessments. And again, remember the performance assessments will be available for you online to download. At the end of the book we talked about earlier, the Foundational Skills Handbook. This is where this will be mini lessons focusing on the prerequisite skills of the prerequisite skills for the grade level. The Teacher's Edition. As I mentioned, there's a full Teacher's Edition for each grade level that provides in-depth lesson plans for every lesson. It guides teachers on how to teach the lesson, whether a teacher be a novice or a seasoned teacher. Common Core is new to everybody, so there are really good teaching tips throughout the Teacher's Edition. The essential question begins with question starters, helping you use that. The essential question, I shouldn't say begins with conversation starters, but the essential question, again, is a nice kickoff to the big idea for the unit. And then we provide you with question starters, conversation starters, to help you really hone in on students' experiences in a meaningful way, connecting it to the unit opener. And then we provide you with activities that address the prerequisite skills for the content of the unit. So right off the bat, we have the big idea. We're guiding you through how to address that big idea with students with conversation starters and an activity. Every lesson, we identify right at the beginning of the lesson, the Common Core state standards are spelled out. Again, we're guiding you on the essential question for the lesson, how to focus on that essential question. The prerequisite skills reference the Foundational Skills Handbook in the back of the book. So again, we're helping you fill in those gaps in Common Core and fill in those gaps in your core program. And then there's fluency practice. There's fluency practice available. Again, one of the major shifts in Common Core that's under the rigor that students really are fluent in mathematics. And then we take you through concept development. Through those series of Understand and Connect presentations, we take you step by step on how to address or to teach the skills of the lesson. We have features throughout the program that'll help understand again more of the skill of the lesson, the skills and concepts. Words to know. We have words to know features that really give you a little bit more in-depth knowledge, in-depth explanation, I should say, on the words of the key words, the academic words of the lesson. We have support for English language learners, so here's where we differentiate instruction. And we have math-to-math connections. So again, this is the coherence where we're encouraging you to help students make connections in math. We have observational assessment opportunities throughout the program to help you, again, have an informal assessment of students' progress with the lesson. We guide you with the peer collaboration with the Think, Pair, Share feature. And then we return to the essential question at the end of the lesson. So we pose the question in the beginning of the lesson, and then we return to the essential question. And this acts as a student debrief, if you would, at the end of the lesson to make sure that students really understand the skill and concept of the lesson. And then, as we mentioned, when I mentioned taking you through the student edition, we talked about how the mathematical practices are addressed in the student edition, and this just gives you a little bit more insight on how they're used. Throughout the independent practice section, there's common errors. We identify any misconceptions students might have and then provide you with teaching tips for solutions to those misconceptions. And then we return to the progress check. Remember the coherence document that I talked about in the beginning of the unit, that progress check. I can before the unit, I can after the unit. So now let's go back and assess students' progress after the chapter. Additional features throughout the Teacher's Edition. Again, I mentioned the mathematical practice. There's digital connections, as well as writing about math type features. Again, getting students to think, reason, and explain, and share their thinking. For the Common Core review, we identify the depth of knowledge. Remember, I told you that they're cognitively challenged exercises. So we identify the depth of knowledge level that each Common Core review item addresses right here in the Teacher's Edition for you. So I hope that you've seen, taking you through the Student Edition and the Teacher's Edition, that you've seen the essence of Common Core. You've seen that collaboration, that visualization, the explanation and justification that Common Core wants to happen in the classroom. And then I'm going to end with our digital resources. We do have an abundance of resources available at sadlierconnect.com. The entire program will be available as an ebook. We'll have additional Home Connect activities online for students. We'll have additional independent practice items online for students as well. We have more practice for our Common Core state standards. We'll have more practice for the Foundational Skills Handbook, additional professional development videos for you, as well as additional resources for the teacher in terms of graphic organizers. This is what our Sadlier Connect homepage looks like, and this is when you would log into Sadlier Connect. You would have 5 different categories of resources: instruction, student practice, assessments, student resources, teacher resources, and parent resources. So we have a full-blown program for you, a full, complete program in terms of support for Common Core with a student edition, in-depth teacher edition with lesson plans, and online support. And I hope that you've seen, while I've taken you through the program, how it addresses the standards for mathematical practices, how it addresses the shifts in math, and helps build students' knowledge for the Common Core state content standards. So should you like to preview the table of contents, right now we have up on our preview site at sadlier.com/preview-CCP. You can review the table of contents for every grade level and also request a sample at that same preview site. So again, I'm just going to reiterate that this is an English language. This program is available for English language arts, grades 1 through 8. It has a consistent format for both programs and a consistent instructional model in terms of the gradual release of responsibility model, and it's organized for easy use. With that, I'm going to open it up to any questions, Rosara, that we might have.
Janine, thank you so much. This presentation is very informative. Thank you very much for that. And yes, we do have some questions, and I do want to remind everyone else, if you have a question, please post it in the chat box at your control panel, and we'll be happy to answer them. And Janine, the first question is, I'm from New York. Do you have correlations available for the new New York State standards?
Yes, so actually that's a really good question. So we will be we do have a correlation to the New York State standards. And if you're from New York, I know New York, their curriculum model is a story of units. And we did correlate our progress program to New York story of units. And that will be available on that preview site. So if I just back up, I think one slide, I'll go back to that preview site, two slides. And you could see on this preview site is where you're going to find your specific state correlations. And should you not find them there, please just email me and I will send you the state correlations. Good question.
Fantastic. Here goes the next one. When is this product, or when will this product be available?
Okay. So another good question. So grades K through 5 will be available. The student editions will be available by the end of this year. I believe grades 3 through 5 are the earliest, I believe December 9th, and K2, I believe it was December 27th. So I think it's safe to say that by the end of December you will have all of your K5 student editions, and your teacher editions will follow. I believe they trail a month. So let's say by February you should have a complete program, K5. And 6-8, you will have your complete program available by, I believe it's the end of February. So by 6-8, you'll have all your, by February, March, you should have a complete K-8 program.
Fantastic. And we have one more question here. What is the cost?
Okay, so the cost of it's organized by the cost is based on the student edition, and of course the more copies you purchase, the cheaper it is. So I'll start with the cheapest price, which is 20 plus copies, and at 20 plus copies it's $14.95 per student, and then it drops if the number of copies drops. I think then the next tier is 10 through 19, and that's at $16.95. And then the next tier of copies is 3 through 9 copies at $17.95, and then the 1 to 2 copies is at $19.95. So it's based on the number of copies that you purchase. And again, if you go to the preview site, there should be additional information there. But if you require additional information, please don't hesitate to email me.
Fantastic. That was the only questions we have for today.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join this webinar. I hope it was informative, and not only that you learned a little bit more about Common Core, but you also learned how Sadlier's Common Core Progress Program can help you meet the needs of Common Core in your everyday classroom. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.